The winner is The Simpsons.
And on behalf of all of us, we'd like to thank Electronic Arts for proving that video game executives are not as big assholes as TV executives. Thank you.
The title The Simpsons Game is sort of meant to signify that we're restarting the Simpsons gaming franchise. This is a quote from Matt Selman, executive producer and co-writer of The Simpsons Game, describing how the new title was seen as a fresh start for the game series. Yet in 2011, it was confirmed the sequel has been cancelled. So what happened to the rebirth of the Simpsons gaming franchise? As a big classic Simpsons fan, and someone who really enjoyed the last few games in the series, I wanted to find out. But first, to understand what happened to the franchise, we have to start at the beginning and figure out what defines a Simpsons game. When the Simpsons TV show first aired in
1987,
it was a huge success, and the franchise wasted no time jumping into the gaming industry, releasing The Simpsons Bart vs Space Mutants in 1991. But it didn't stop there. It didn't matter the console, genre, or developer. By the end of 1992, they'd released 9 games. If you thought the annual releases of Call of Duty were bad, consider yourself lucky.
This is Blackout!
I know movie and TV based games don't have a good reputation in general, but f*** me, some of these games suck. The controls are ass, the graphics look like they come from an ass, the difficulty kicks your ass, and the storylines, well, they're straight up shit. Between 1994 and 1997, 6 more similar Simpsons games were released, and if you loved Bart, you were in for a treat considering out of the 15 games released, 9 feature him in the title. Other than Bart and a couple of Itchy and Scratchy themed games, there's absolutely no connection between them. The growth in Simpsons games only escalated between 2001 and 2003. With a new generation of consoles on the market, the Simpsons scavengers had the perfect chance to strike with another 5 games. An irrelevant platformer, WWF SmackDown, Crazy Taxi, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and Grand Theft Auto. It appears the Simpsons have a bit of an identity crisis going on. Instead of creating anything original and unique, the developers would just do their own version of what other popular games did. So much so that in 2003, Sega sued the Simpsons Road Rage due to plagiarizing Crazy Taxi. The lawsuit was settled in private for an undisclosed amount, so you'd think after going through a case like this, it would put an end to the blatant copying. However, during the same year Sega sued the Simpsons Road Rage, the team behind that game, Radical Entertainment, were finishing development on one more copy that would go on to be one of their best. The beloved semi-GTA clone, The Simpsons Hit and Run, is one of the most iconic Simpsons games out there. Written by the writers of the Simpsons TV show, with all characters voiced by the original cast, it was a pretty big success from the start, with over 3 million copies sold in total on only a small number of platforms. This was also one of the best games received by fans. Despite what happened over The Simpsons Road Rage, the developers took the risk and went all out.
Please don't sue us again.
The game even used Road Rage's driving mechanics and improved upon them by implementing advanced AI, so the other cars on the road or pedestrians would actually respond to potential accidents. The game had 7 large levels in total, and each one contained its own bonus mission, 3 street races, a wager race, costumes and vehicles to buy. If you were a kid that wasn't allowed Grand Theft Auto growing up, this would be what you get instead, like me. Personally, what made Hit and Run even better too was its cheat system. Every game can get boring, so putting any of these cheats in definitely kept my childhood attention intact. Did you ever find the Burns Casino ramp on Lisa's level difficult? Let me just press my horn. You know what, I take back saying every game can get boring. I never got bored of Hit and Run. Man, I've spent probably hundreds of hours just speeding on the unfinished motorways and doing this weird attack move that I discovered.
Leave me alone!
Hit and Run also did a much better job at self-references than its predecessors, and there's quite a lot of them. Some of my favourites including Jebediah Springfield's brutal beheading, the monorail being drivable, sort of. Oh, and it's not really a reference but a location, but I loved Krusty Lou Studios. Also, does this count as a reference?
I'm telling you, I didn't do anything.
I don't care.
Hit and Run also had ridiculous but believable stories for the fictional Simpsons universe. In the original games, sometimes the plot just didn't make much sense. In Hit and Run, it does a pretty decent job at portraying the characters for how we knew them from the show through their actions and the situations they put themselves in. So after the team's huge success with Hit and Run, what happened next for the Simpsons? Nothing. This was also the last time that Radical Entertainment developed a Simpsons title. After that, they just focused on their own projects, and there wasn't another Simpsons game developed for another 3 years, until everyone's favourite publisher came along and changed everything. EA secured the rights to the Simpsons license. Not the best start, but this was 2005, so EA weren't as problematic back then, although comments from articles of that date do show some of the consumers' skepticisms for the company and the show. EA had planned a multi-game, long-term and exclusive deal, and stated that acquiring the Simpsons license had been their intentions for years. So with EA now the official publisher and developer, it was considered a fresh start. So, together with the writers, they came up with the Simpsons game.
You just always keep getting surprised, and I think it's genuinely funny. I think you'll really laugh as you play.
Do you think we're going to see more of that from you guys in the future?
If it works, you sure will.
The writers described the story as, well...
So a big part of the story of this game is that the Simpsons, in the beginning of the game, realize they're in a game, and then they sort of realize that they're in a bad game. Then they realize that there have been all these bad games that have come before. Then they realize that there are more bad games coming down the road, that they're going to make them obsolete, and that the people who've been in the bad games are in trouble.
Yep, that sums it up perfectly. If you didn't catch what he said, here's the whole game story broken down. The Simpson family all learn of their superpowers from a video game guide that fell down from the sky. After this, the world gets invaded by aliens for literally no reason. Kang and Kodos don't even explain why they're actually there. Anyway, Kang and Kodos are too strong for the Simpsons to fight, so Bart and Lisa visit Professor Frink to find a cheat guide and end up in
The game engine.
They then return to the real world with stronger powers to attack one ship that conveniently holds Sideshow Bob in it, who was apparently working for the aliens. Oh god.
Try not to think about it too much.
Yeah, well said. Kang and Kodos then get defeated a second time, so they eat mini egg rolls.
Egg rolls. Delicious. Hot. Revenge. Revenge.
But the Simpsons still aren't strong enough, and again end up in the game engine, only to fight Will Wright. If you don't know who he is, don't worry about it. And then they fight Matt Groening, the creator of the Simpsons, instead of just asking for help, only for him to hit a self-destruct button. So that was all a waste of time, I guess. Throughout the game, there's been so much build-up for this final battle against Kang and Kodos. Surely, now with the game engine gone, this is the moment we've all been waiting for.
I guess all that's left to do is pray that God saves us. That's it, Mom. We have to talk to God.
Oh, for After a very stressful dance-off, God tells the Simpsons that they're part of a game created by his game, which I guess is us playing. Then Marge requests God to put Springfield back to the way it was.
Put Springfield back the way it was.
That's how you win against the aliens now. That's how you beat Kang and Kodos. But then this stupid gag happens where now Ralph is playing the game that we were supposed to be playing. Can someone please explain to me what the f just happened? The game just ends like that. We never find out what happens after this. What's the message here? To have faith? Because the plot of the entire game is based around everyone is just part of a video game, there's no true resolution or real risk to the Simpsons game story. What, I put all them hours into playing just to hear God tell the characters I've been controlling that I've been controlling them? Ho ho, what an incredible fourth wall break. This didn't even impress me when I was 10. If the Simpsons game was supposed to have a sequel, where could the characters even go from here?
All the game companies would have been perfectly happy just to do Medal of Homer as a game. Like, that's just the game. Oh, we'll just do a World War II parody, the way we did a bad Crazy Taxi parody. We decided to go with EA because they really had a passion for following our vision.
This quote is really important because it really shows what the writers' intentions were for the Simpsons game. The writers basically said here that if they wanted to get another developer to create another single crappy clone game, they could have. But instead they chose EA, because EA were happy putting multiple crappy clone levels in, and basing the whole game off them. I don't know about you, but I'm getting some clear signs of quantity over quality here, which, to be honest, is nothing short of expected for the Simpsons writers anyway.
How much story's in the game?
How much story? So certainly, as Matt Selman, the head writer, actually alluded to, we have over 55 minutes of linear content. So when you actually go into Springfield, there actually are all the people from Springfield there, and they're talking to each other. They're just kind of wandering around as citizens you can play with and interact with. So
Terry's my twin. Gross. Sherry's my twin.
Mexican.
I've wasted my life.
If you listen to some interviews with executives, writers, and other big names representing the Simpsons Game brand, they always emphasize how much work has gone into making over 200 characters and thousands of voice lines and an hour of cutscenes, which sounds great until you realize the 200 characters are just dumped in the main hub, and minus a few of them, don't have any real impact on the game, and the cheap comedy is just...
Hey, you like that rabbit thing from that book about a girl named Alice who goes to Wonderland. What was it called? Oh yeah, Snow White and Stupid Town.
That's the opening joke of the game? Quick gags weren't the only thing the writers wanted to have in the game. Because the Simpsons show was popular for its satire and referential comedy, the team wanted the game to follow the same route, but with gaming references. And god did they go overkill.
Someday I hope to be promoted to Lou.
Sometimes Brandine forgets that her parents are my parents too.
On the game's launch night, James L. Brooks even comments on their use of references here.
So we're here with Mr. Brooks, the legend, the Simpsons legend.
It was the dream in terms of working closely, where everybody listened to everybody. It was a dream. But if you have a game that has 8 jokes that you keep hearing, it's nothing. And there are almost 1,000 in this. All our voices are in it. And it's in it in a surprising way, and the jokes are based on gaming.
Okay, I do not agree with this statement at all, especially when thousands of said jokes are mediocre at best and incredibly forced.
How would you describe this evil CEO's attitude toward the old ways and the traditions of your ancestors?
Most disrespectful!
I've built a stairway to heaven.
Awesome. Ooh, I hope your stores aren't all closed.
It doesn't always have to be how much there is of something to become good, which the people at The Simpsons clearly don't know anyway. The cliche system they have with the comic book guy was cool, until you realise the feature is just an excuse for the developers to use the same cliches in their game over making anything unique. And the majority of these references and cliches try to wear the self-aware cloak, as if to say, it's okay if we make a terrible level that's even less interesting than the cliche we're referencing, because we're self-aware. It's very lazy on the developer's side and the writers. The Simpsons game has absolutely no subtlety. Every reference feels like it's thrown in your face, screaming, "Look at me! Look how relatable I am to gaming!"
I hope it's a spaghetti! Here we go!
That was awful! And what monster did this to Sonic? It makes matters worse that the writer's excuse for putting loads of these references in was by using the game engine.
And the jokes are based on gaming, and it's in it in a surprising way.
I'm not surprised at all that the game engine has game references in it. I'd actually be shocked if it didn't.
Sure, the Simpsons game is great with its unique upgradable character abilities and its hilarious self-referential cutscenes.
The only thing hilarious here is how wrong Lisa is. Remember the quote from the start? The Simpsons game was designed to be the rebirth of the franchise, but as this game was yet again based on parodying other video game genres, it never really found its own. I feel like because this game was too focused on being a reference to other games and its own characters, it never really found its unique place in the gaming industry. And you know what? I think the writers are mainly responsible for this. What makes matters a lot worse is Matt Selman is vocal about how crappy the last 3 games were that he helped create.
Matt, you've been writing these games for a couple of years, right? Back to like, what, hit and run?
Road rage, skateboarding, hit and run. Simpsons video game fans know that there is a legacy of crappiness. We decided to accept the fact that there have been upwards of 30 bad Simpsons games that have been come out up until now.
In my opinion, the Simpsons game is everything but the Simpsons game. Yes, it has the cast and the setting of the Simpsons universe, but the thing is, I feel like any family cartoon show could take its place with a similar plotline. We don't learn anything new about the Simpsons, there's no character development because everyone is now aware they're fictional. The Simpsons game became a standalone title by accident, something that wasn't ever intended by the writers. EA didn't even get into the development stage of the supposed sequel, announcing it was cancelled in 2011 without giving any information or reason, but it's pretty evident why.
Do you think we're going to see more of that from you guys in the future?
If it works, you sure will.
Alright, cool. Thank you, James, very much.
Since this game, there hasn't been another one on the console, but you don't have to look too far to see why.
Have you been spending too much time with your family? Do you sometimes feel you're too productive at work? Then you might benefit from The Simpsons Tapout.
Good old freemium mobile games. In 2012, EA released The Simpsons Tapout, and since then, EA has been surprisingly supportive to the game. I'll be real with you, the trailer doesn't lie. The game is very addicting. It's a simple city building game at the core, with its own in-game currency used to speed up actions or buy premium items, you know. It's your generic freemium game. For The Simpsons Tapout, there are still active forums and subreddits out there, and I have to give props to EA Mobile for still supporting the game over the years. Even the writers, as painstakingly self-referential as they are, still provide the game with microscripts every time there's an update, which is pretty nice. And also, what's pretty good about these updates is that they go alongside the TV show sometimes, so content's always available to be added. Whether that content being that enjoyable, I'll leave you to decide. Tapout does have a story which follows you as you level up, but it's not really that important to the overall gameplay. After all, you're building your own Springfield. Tapout is also extremely time consuming if you don't spend a few bucks here and there, which is the expectation of a freemium game anyway, but it means that the game can be stretched out over hundreds, if not thousands of hours playtime. And honestly, I was actually really surprised how much content there is to offer. I played The Simpsons Tapout for about half a year, and it does do a good job at keeping you feel like you're in that Simpsons universe. But whilst I was this regular player, I would browse the forums and the subreddits. I noticed that there were a lot of premium players. There's still a lot of people out there purchasing the in-game currency. The Simpsons Tapout is generating a lot of revenue, and because of this current success, it leaves no incentive for EA to release another real Simpsons title, especially when they're already making a profit without having to be risky or experiment. And just to put it in perspective, in the first year alone, Tapout's generated over $100 million in in-game revenue for EA. If that doesn't answer your question on where the Simpsons games are, I don't know what will. So what happened to the Simpsons game? They started how they ended, as simple cash grabs.
I swear I didn't know they'd be awful, Lisa. If I'd known, I only would have slapped your faces on mugs, t-shirts, candy, lunchboxes, board games, gum, novelty flying discs, and fluffy beach towels.
With repetitive, blatant copying of other popular games under a sheet of irony and parody with no originality or identity, there was nothing that could make the Simpsons game stand out from the crowd. Quantity over quality plays the reboot game, with too much trust being placed in the hands of writers to create something compelling and interesting. Being a TV show writer does not mean you have the skills necessary for writing a video game. EA currently have an active Simpsons audience in their pocket that they feed low-effort updates to every so often, and the audience are content with that, so there's no need to change. Also, with the Simpsons TV show being on a heavy decline for the last 20 odd years, it probably wouldn't even be worth investing so much work and money if nobody really cares that much about there being a new one. Plus, with EA's recent history of microtransactions and loot boxes, if The Simpsons 2 were to come out, you know fine well that them 200 characters wouldn't be free. I started this video out of curiosity as to see what happened to my favourite Simpsons childhood games, and unfortunately, now that I'm older, I can see straight through the nostalgia. Apart from the Simpsons Hit and Run, I don't care, that will always be one of my favourite games. For the people who have lots of nostalgia for games like the Simpsons game, don't forget this is just my opinion, and if you still enjoy them games or not, that's fine, you go enjoy them games. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really put so much time and effort into the research behind this video, so a like would be very much appreciated, and I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts and opinions on this. Do you think there should be any more Simpsons games? Feel free to comment below. And a massive thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I definitely wouldn't be able to create projects like this without you. Also, if you are a patron, feel free to message me over there talking about this and everything. I'll see you later. Love you all.
What happens if the fans watch this, you know, they tape it, they put it on their TiVo, they say, Matt says it's going to be good, it's going to be great, and then they go buy it, and they're like, it still sucks.
I just say blame EA.